What is going on, Trash Talkers? We are back with another episode for you. In today's video, we're going to discuss what's going on with Baker Mayfield and what the future holds for him. All that and much more coming your way right now! All right, before we get into today's video, be sure to hit that subscribe button and like the video as it will help us out tremendously. So sit back, relax, and enjoy today's video. All right, Nick, with the 2022 NFL draft officially over, we have to start taking a look at some of the players that were not traded during the draft. And I have to start off with Baker Mayfield, still in Cleveland with Deshaun Watson and company. Baker Mayfield has made it known. He wrote the letter to the Cleveland fan base, thanking them for supporting him during his time with the franchise. But he is done, he is out, and he still remains on the roster. What the hell is happening in Cleveland, and what is going to happen with Baker Mayfield?
With the draft over, the Cleveland Browns now have to figure out what is next for Baker Mayfield. They had a big opportunity during the draft to go and move Baker Mayfield for some draft capital. This guy is going to be due $18 million with his fifth-year option being picked up by the Cleveland Browns. They now have to go and figure out how they're going to get anything for him with the draft completely over, and they're going to have to wait until next year because there's no player that's going to be traded for Baker Mayfield. In fact, there are very few teams that are left with a quarterback need, and there are no teams that are willing to take on Baker Mayfield as it stands and make him their starter. So who's really going to go and take on that $18 million that is guaranteed to Baker? This is a tough situation for Cleveland Browns, and honestly, it's an even tougher situation for Baker Mayfield because he's not a guy who's going to want to enter that building knowing exactly how the Browns treated him, saying he's their guy, and moving on from Deshaun Watson to 24 hours later saying, Baker Mayfield, so long, you're not our guy anymore. We're going to go and give Deshaun Watson the biggest contract that any NFL player has ever seen, fully guaranteed. And this is just absolutely devastating to Baker. We all understand where he's coming from, and we all understand that he is not a guy who's going to just show up to camp, participate, be a team player, because the way the Browns treated him, why should he treat them well at all? Baker Mayfield is going to be just like what Deshaun Watson was to the Houston Texans last year. At most, he'll sit on the sideline and just wait until something happens. There is no way the Cleveland Browns want to see Baker Mayfield back in their facility, so now it's on them to not only get rid of him, but take what they can get. And at this moment, there is not much being offered, if anything at all, for Baker Mayfield. So this is a very interesting situation that the Cleveland Browns and Baker Mayfield find themselves in.
It's interesting, right? Because you talked about the money aspect, you talked about the lack of need in the NFL. I think that we have to kind of compartmentalize all of these different things. So the money is obviously a big concern. When you're paying $18.5 million to a guy who, could be riding the bench, that is a big misuse of funds, and that has to be reflected upon the GM and the front office and everything that they've been able to do up until this point. My concern would be, do the Cleveland Browns try to move him? And if so, do they have to include eating most of, if not all, of his salary for this season?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what's going to happen. They're going to have to move on from Baker Mayfield. There's no way that they can hold on to him because he's just not going to show up, and that's a loss of a roster spot because he is one of your top 51 players that counts against the cap. No one is going to take on that $18.5 million, so you're going to have to eat that money, and that allows Baker Mayfield, if you release him, to go and play for a team for the veteran minimum, where he gets to make another start for himself, give himself another opportunity to prove to the rest of the league that he is a capable guy. He was the number one pick for a reason, and he still has that mentality. Remember back in college, this is a guy who walked on once, walked on a second time, and became the number one overall pick. This guy has that dog mentality. The guy has what it takes to persevere through all the noise. And this is the biggest noise he's faced, but Baker Mayfield can push through it all and become that guy for a team. It just depends on which team is willing to take that risk. And I think it's only going to come if he is released and has no money tied to him.
So here's my question though. If the if the Cleveland Browns are not willing to eat the salary, what do they have to include with Baker Mayfield? Is it a first round pick? Do they have to include some sort of other compensation, like maybe another player that, is on a rookie deal? Are you taking a look at maybe Greedy Williams or somebody else who might have to go along with him? Like what will the Browns have to do to entice a team that may or may not even exist to take on Baker Mayfield and the money if they're not willing to eat it?
I really don't believe that it's going to take any draft capital. If at anything, it would be a day 2, day 3 pick, but it's mainly going to come down to the money. If they're willing to eat it, then I think there will be a buyer, and it's going to be very cheap. They'll only be getting a 6th, 7th round pick in return for Baker Mayfield. You essentially are trading him to a team that just does not want a potential team to take him if he is released. So you're really looking at getting nothing in return. You may as well release him if the only team trying to trade for him is a team you don't want him going to, and you'd rather him take his chances in free agency. So I think at the end of the day, the Browns have lost all options out there for gaining any sort of positive return for Baker Mayfield, and are now forced into a bad position where they're going to have to, no matter what, eat the money and either release him or get essentially nothing in return.
All right, so we talked about the how. Let's talk about the where, and just kind of throwing things out there. Before the draft, I thought that Pittsburgh might actually be a really solid landing spot. We obviously know what happened with Dwayne Haskins, and our hearts are still out with his family, but they were definitely in need of a quarterback. They got their guy in Kenny Pickett, so they are completely off the board. They're not bringing him in to compete with the guys they have. The only other teams that I can see, and I just want your thoughts, so I'm going to give them to you one at a time. What about Houston to compete with Davis Mills? May the best man win.
Yeah, I think this is definitely a possibility for the Houston Texans, but knowing GM Nick Caserio, he's not a guy who's going to give up pretty much anything to go and get Baker Mayfield. He is fully committed into Davis Mills, and even though they don't have a second quarterback to go and make Davis Mills compete for the job going to year 2, they are fully content in having Davis Mills know that he is their quarterback moving forward, and they are fully content with him as the only guy. Baker Mayfield is not somebody who is on their radar, and nor should he, because to me, Davis Mills right now is the better quarterback, a guy with 0 injury history, and a guy you can count on with the football intelligence he brings coming from Stanford.
How about another team that has a quarterback from the same draft class, the Carolina Panthers?
Yeah, Sam Darnold had a ton of struggles, and I would say Baker Mayfield is the better quarterback of the two, but they did draft Matt Corral as well, and this is a guy that they want competing with Sam Darnold. They were in talks with the Cleveland Browns for Baker Mayfield, but that essentially went away after that draft pick, and Matt Corral, he has his off-field issues as well, but he doesn't have the injury history. He does not have the outside noise like Baker Mayfield does. And the Carolina Panthers are a team who are trying to move on from the bad quarterbacks they have had, Cam Newton, Sam Darnold. Baker Mayfield is not a guy that has a great history, and he could just be another bridge quarterback for them, which they are not looking for. They believe Matt Corral could be the answer, and they'd rather take the chance on him rather than getting Baker Mayfield. So I believe that Carolina Panthers aren't willing to give up anything of value for Baker Mayfield, and he'd be a guy that could only get to them through a release from the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I had heard speculation about possibly the Seattle Seahawks, but from what I've heard, the Seattle Seahawks are fully invested in Drew Lock. They want a guy who can throw the football down the field. Drew Lock has the arm talent to get it done. Working in that system, I believe that him, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett will be a really good match. I don't think Baker Mayfield would fit that offense. I have two outliers, outside the box scenarios, and I just want your quick takes on these ones quickly. First off, how about the Miami Dolphins just giving competition to Tua Tagovailoa and saying, you know what, Tua, we are giving you every weapon possible, but we're going to now give you competition because we need to freaking win. We got Tyreek Hill. We need a quarterback. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I just don't see this scenario playing out, because go back to when Brian Flores was the head coach of this team. He did not want Tua Tagovailoa. He wanted to move on, and they chose to stick by their quarterback, getting rid of their head coach and getting a guy in Mike McDaniel who said, I believe in Tua. I'm going to work with this guy and get him to produce as a franchise quarterback. So with that said, I don't think they're going to be willing to bring on Baker Mayfield for competition, because they had Ryan Fitzpatrick. They brought Tua into the starting role and then took him right back out, and that hurt his confidence. They're trying to rebuild that confidence to where it was with Alabama, and I don't think they're willing to hurt his ego by bringing Baker Mayfield to the Miami Dolphins.
All right, last one, and this is kind of a shock for most people, but if the Cleveland Browns are willing to eat the salary, how about the Green Bay Packers? When you have Aaron Rodgers on your roster for what is essentially 3 more one-year stints at most, you have to have a guy that can come in and help this organization after he leaves. We know it's not Jordan Love. He is absolutely awful in that system. Insert Baker Mayfield. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, Baker Mayfield would have a new opportunity in Green Bay, but he's going to have to be willing to ride the bench, and this is only going to come if they're not paying him any money. So this goes back to the Cleveland Browns having to release him or eat all of that salary and potentially just taking on Jordan Love as a replacement. The Green Bay Packers aren't going to want to pay 3 quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers getting that $50 million a year, that's a lot of money for one player. Then you have Jordan Love getting that first round money, and then Baker Mayfield as well. They just cannot afford that with the rest of the roster the way it is. So it's going to have to come extremely cheap, and I just don't know if the Green Bay Packers are willing to take on another quarterback when they still believe Jordan Love has the potential to take over after Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, as you mentioned, Nick, most of these teams have answered the bell when it comes to the quarterback position. Most teams are fully in belief that they have their guys. They don't really want to bring in competition. I'm of the mindset that even if you have some questions, you got to bring in competition. May the best person win. But most people do not share that mentality with me. I think that he would fit extremely well in Indianapolis, but they went out and got Matt Ryan. Maybe if the Cleveland Browns are willing to eat that salary once again, he could sit behind Matt Ryan for a year or two and then take over in Indy. Who knows? There's a ton of potential opportunities, but I want to hear from you guys. Let us know in the comments down below what you think of Baker Mayfield's situation, where you think he'll end up, and if you want to see him on your team, let us know in the comments down below. All right, well, that's going to be all for now. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. We go live every single day. That'll be all. Peace and love.